Welcome to the channel. Today's story is full of surprises and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in. I was on my usual stool at Carl's pub, looking down at my half-filled drink, when the noise level went up again. Another group of cheerful partiers had come in. I can't stand this time of year. Sorry, did you say you hated Winter Festival? A voice beside me inquired. Damn, I must have voiced my thoughts out loud. I hadn't intended to, but it was what I was thinking. Yeah, what's everyone got to be so happy about? Disturbing my peace, that's what, I replied without looking at whoever had addressed me. Oh, come on, my friend. That's not the attitude to have. It's Winter Festival, you know, a time for happiness and goodwill to all, the voice beside me commented. I turned and saw a short, round old man with white hair and a beard sitting on the bar stool beside me. He looked like one of those fake Santas who had stopped for a drink on his way home from work. Where did he come from? I thought. I didn't remember seeing him arrive. With the crowd in Carl's pub that evening, the Queen could walk in, and no one would notice. Look, I come here almost every night for a quiet drink to drown my sorrows. Maybe I chat with Carl, the barman, or a couple of my friends. None of us have anything to be happy about. We all live alone with our own demons, and we prefer to have our bar to ourselves. We don't like it when all these idiots come running around wishing everyone a merry winter festival. I scowled in the old man's direction. We've all got our problems, my friend, but you must try to lighten up sometimes. This is the time to forget your problems and be happy, the old man smiled back at me. Why do people think they can understand your problems without knowing anything about you? I got annoyed with the old boy. You just tell me what the hell I have to be happy about, I scowled back at him. The cheeky old man was getting on my nerves, so I decided to give him a piece of my mind. Look, for damn years ago, after what I thought was a happy marriage, I came home from work sick one afternoon to find my so-called loving wife, Nina, screwing her boss, Ryan, in my bed. I lost it, and the witch ran off with him. He had a lot more money than I ever had, so when it came to the divorce, they gave Nina custody of not only my 4 kids but my dog as well. And what did she do? She made it damn hard for me to see my kids for the next year and a half. I was in and out of court trying to get the access I was supposed to have. The courts don't care about fathers. Then the damn child support agency came down on me like a ton of bricks, taking most of my wages for the next year. I couldn't even afford to buy my kids decent winter festival presents. I wouldn't have minded if Nina and her boyfriend needed the money, but he owned the company she worked for. He made more money in a week than I did in 2 years. You know what they did that winter festival? They opened my presents to the kids before winter festival and then went out and bought more expensive versions of what I had bought, giving them to the kids first. I wasn't allowed anywhere near them on winter festival day. When I finally saw my kids, they had forgotten my gifts while playing with the more expensive toys. I see you have a vindictive ex-wife, but remember, my friend, as they get older, your children will know you love them. Now that's one thing they won't be able to take away from you, the old man said. Last winter festival, Nina and her boyfriend took the kids skiing in Vermont. One night, they went out and Ryan got drunk. On the way back to their hotel, he drove his car into a lake. He made sure he and Nina got out, but my kids were still strapped in their seats when the car was pulled out the next morning. That bastard killed my kids. So now you see why I don't like winter festival. It holds no joy for me, just bad memories. My friend, I'm sorry you've had such an unfortunate couple of years, but you have to try and move on with your life. You really must try to forget and make a new life for yourself. Just try to remember the good times you had with your children. Look, there weren't any good times once they moved in with that asshole. They got everything they ever wanted and didn't want to know me anymore. They were spoiled rotten. I only got to see them once a damn month. They were just forgetting me, I said, annoyed. The old man was still smiling at me. I've got to say it, I really felt like telling him to piss off and leave me alone, but there were so many people jammed into that bar I doubt he could have moved away if he wanted to. What you tell me is very upsetting to hear, he went on, but there must have been some good times before your wife left. Surely you have to accept that your old life is gone, and try to make a new one for yourself. The old man and I sat in the bar talking until closing time. Towards the end, I had begun to warm to him a little. I think he was truly concerned about me, trying to convince me to forget the past and look to the future. He left the bar just before I did, and I watched him make his way somewhat unsteadily out the door. After he had gone, I finished my pint, said good night to Carl, and began making my way home. I don't know whether it's lucky or unlucky that I didn't have a car that night. It's lucky I couldn't drive home drunk because I might have killed someone, but it was unlucky because I couldn't drive into a tree and kill myself, which was what I really wanted to do. Outside the bar, I found the old man slumped against the wall. He had undoubtedly consumed much more alcohol than he could handle. Damn, I thought, I can't leave the old man here. If it turns any colder, he could freeze to death. Come on, Pop, where do you live? I suppose I'm going to have to walk you home, I said. That's kind of you, Alex. I'm feeling a little unsteady. I should be all right after I've been in the fresh air for a little while, he said. It didn't strike me at the time, but this old boy knew my name. I never figured that one out. Perhaps he heard Carl say it. We made off in the direction of his home. Much to my relief, it wasn't too far out of my way. The old boy was leaning against me, chatting on about life. I must admit I wasn't really listening, so I don't remember a single word he said. I just wanted to get him home and then get back to my own bed. Suddenly, the old guy stood up straight as if he wasn't drunk anymore. Fire! He shouted. A little confused, I looked in the direction he was pointing. Sure enough, through the smoke-blackened windows of a nearby house, I could just make out a winter festival tree in flames. Then, with a bang, the picture window exploded outwards. The next second, the whole room was a roaring inferno, and flames were licking up the front of the building. There's a woman and 4 children in that house, the old man said. Suddenly, I was as sober as a judge. I pulled my phone from my pocket and passed it to the old man. Call the fire department, I instructed him as I began running towards the house. They say people do brave things because they don't think of the consequences of their actions. Well, I must tell you, as I threw myself at that front door, I knew there was a good chance I wasn't going to see the morning, and in my heart, I didn't really care. I could feel the heat of the flames roaring out of the nearby window as I approached the door, which much to my surprise gave way at my first charge. Clouds of black smoke enveloped me as I staggered inside, barely retaining my balance. At this time of night, I figured anyone inside would most likely be upstairs in the bedroom. Most of these houses have a similar layout, and I found the staircase easily. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, I rushed up, trying to shout fire at the same time, but the smoke choked me, and I couldn't speak. At the top of the stairs, I found the door to the room directly over the fire. Inside, I felt around, surprised by how much smoke there was. I discovered the forms of 2 small children lying in their beds. I swept them both into my arms, and the next thing I remember, I was coming out of the smoke at the front door. Some young guy was standing there, and I literally threw the 2 kids at him. Taking a few deep breaths of clean air to recover, I turned and went back into the smoke. By this time, the flames were beginning to come through the door of the room where the fire was. As I got to the top of the stairs, the flames enveloped the door, and the fire flashed over into the hall. Through the smoke, I looked back down the stairs, knowing I wouldn't be going back out the way I came in. I went for the back bedroom this time. Inside, I found a woman who had apparently been overcome by the smoke. I'm not a big guy, and I can't tell you how I managed to pick her up. One look out of the back window told me I wasn't going out that way. Flames were licking up from the window below. Back out on the landing, I made for the other front bedroom. Kicking the door open, I was relieved to see flashing blue lights outside through the window. Dropping the woman onto the bed, I grabbed a TV set from a bracket on the wall and threw it through the window, hoping no one was standing below. Then I kicked the rest of the glass out as best I could. I grabbed the boy first, leaning out of the broken window, and dropped him into the arms of a fireman waiting below. The woman followed in the same manner. She was in no condition to object. Looking around, I saw the flames were now in the room with me, so I threw myself out headfirst. Luckily, the fire crew was expecting me and made a damn good job of catching me. The fireman put a breathing set on me to help clear my lungs of smoke. I sat on the pavement, slowly recovering while the firemen tackled the fire. I watched the ambulance crew working on the mother and boy. I didn't see the 2 girls, but there were several ambulances present by then, so they were probably in one further away. My head was throbbing, likely from the smoke and the booze I had consumed that evening. People kept coming up, congratulating me, telling me I was a hero. Damn, I didn't want or need that. Shortly after, the police came over, moving everyone further back from the fire. I took this as my chance, standing up quietly and disappearing into the crowd that had gathered. I mingled for a while, then made a hasty retreat. When I got home, I had a long shower to get rid of the smell of smoke. I thought I would have to get my clothes cleaned because they stank of smoke, but then I found some scorch marks on them. They were gone too. By the time I finally crawled into bed, it was Winter Festival Eve. I crawled out of bed around 10 with the biggest hangover I've ever had in my life. I figured it was half the beer and half that damn smoke. I was in the kitchen, popping coffee and aspirin, when I heard my phone ringing. I found the thing on my dining room table and answered it. Hello, is that Alex Wilson? A female voice I didn't recognize asked. Yes, what's your problem? I replied, back to my usual grumpy self. Oh, Mr. Wilson, I just wanted to thank you for saving my children and me last night. Who is this? My name is Sophia Monroe. It was my children and me that you pulled from the fire last night. I just wanted to thank you. We would have died if you hadn't saved us. I'm afraid I haven't got the faintest idea what you're talking about, lady, I said, denying everything to stay out of the limelight. He said you'd say that, but I know it was you who saved our lives. Don't try to deny it, or I'll tell the newspapers who you are. The press is going crazy trying to find you. Okay, it was me, but there's no need for thanks. I didn't think about it, I just did it. You really don't need to thank me, I told her, then wondered, by the way, how did you know where to find me? Your friend, the nice old gentleman, came in a little while ago. He said he was a friend of yours, told me who you were, and gave me your number. Would you like to talk to him? Yes, I would. I've got a lot to talk to him about. He went off with my phone last night. I stopped speaking, realizing I was talking to Sophia on my phone. But last night, I had given it to the old man to call the fire department, and after I came out of the burning house, I never saw him again. How did I get my phone back? Oh, he seems to have gone. I can't see him around anywhere. I wouldn't worry about it. I think he has a habit of disappearing, Sophia said. Mr. Wilson, I know this is a bit of an imposition on Winter Festival Eve, but is there any chance you could come by the hospital today? My children and I would really like to meet and thank you in person. We won't tell anyone who you are if that's what you wish. Damn and blast, she was asking so nicely. How could I refuse? If you insist, but really, just knowing you're all safe and well is thanks enough for me. What a hypocrite I was. I didn't care a damn about her or her kids and couldn't figure out why I had run into that burning house unless it was an unconscious effort to kill myself. But I agreed to go and see her later. It was around 1:30 when I found her at the hospital. Sophia Monroe was dressed in a strange collection of clothes. Well, I hadn't given them time to dress the night before, had I? Sophia knew who I was the moment I walked into the room. Oh, Alex, how nice of you to come, she said, throwing her arms around my neck and then talking to me as if I was an old family friend. There were 2 other people in the room who asked if I was her husband. She told them, no, Alex is just a special friend. The couple left us alone, and then Sophia apologized for her behavior, saying the other people were reporters, and she thought they might wonder who I was. I thanked her, and then she took me to meet her children. I was amazed that they all appeared to recognize me. The meeting, while friendly and a little overwhelming for me, was strained. I didn't know this family and found their gratitude embarrassing. It was uncomfortable because they reminded me of what I had lost. The children were about the same age as mine had been, maybe a little younger. I really wanted to excuse myself and leave. I shouldn't have gone there. The older girl, Emma, about 10 years old, latched onto my left arm, hanging on for dear life. Then the boy, Lucas, about 2 years younger, came over and took hold of my right hand and never let go. The little one, Olivia, must have felt left out, but she solved that problem by climbing on my lap and locking her arms around my neck. I didn't know what to say to them. I could see a big bruise on Emma's face, remembering the impact with my shoulder as I picked her up the night before, but she never mentioned it. I hadn't been with them long when a lady from social services arrived. She asked Sophia if she had any relatives or friends they could stay with, but she didn't. The woman then told Sophia she would book her and the children into a local bed and breakfast. I knew the place and felt sorry for them. It was a hellhole full of asylum seekers and illegals awaiting deportation. I don't know why I said it, but I suddenly heard myself telling Sophia that she and her children could come and stay at my place for a while. I had the room, but why I invited them, I just don't know. I was really surprised to hear Sophia accepting my offer. This was all very weird. It was completely out of character for me to offer, and weird for Sophia to accept accommodation from a complete stranger. The day got even weirder. All four of us piled into my car, and I started driving home. I realized I had nothing for them to eat, so we stopped at a supermarket and did some shopping, filling 4 trolleys. We were buying Winter Festival for 5. At the checkout, I noticed they had little in the way of clothes, so we went to the clothing store next door and made an even bigger impression on my credit card. Sophia assured me I would be reimbursed, which eventually I was. When we got to my home, I showed them where to settle. It was painful seeing the children in my kids' old rooms. I told Sophia she would have my bed, and I would use the pull-out in my study downstairs. That way, she would be near the children, and I would be on a different floor. No compromising situations could occur that way. There are some really weird guys out there nowadays. Sophia didn't know me from Adam, and I was watching my own back too. The children's disappointment was clear when they saw my house wasn't decorated for the season, so I dug out the artificial Winter Festival tree and decoration box. The children and I set about changing things with a vengeance. I spent forever getting the Winter Festival lights to work. Why is it they work fine when you put them away, but when you get them out again, you have to check nearly every light? Sophia still had the problem of Winter Festival presents for the children, which I solved by digging out the presents I had bought for my kids the year before. They hadn't lived long enough to receive them. I had put them away in a cupboard and tried to forget about them. It was painful, but having done it, I was glad. Sophia's children were about the same age as mine would have been. Winter Festival morning was the best I had in years. Watching the children open those presents was a strange feeling, but I'm not going into that, it's too painful. Sophia started cooking Winter Festival dinner while I played with the kids. Around noon, a guy from Sophia's insurance company arrived, telling her the company would organize the house repairs and inform her when and where to choose replacement furniture and carpeting. "They're on the ball," I commented after he had gone. "You're not kidding." "I hadn't even told them about the fire yet," Sophia replied. "We didn't solve that one." Later, the insurance company said they had received a phone call on Winter Festival Eve reporting the fire and making a claim on Sophia's behalf. The odd thing was, their record showed the call was made in the morning, well before I had gone to the hospital to meet Sophia and invited her to stay with me. That Winter Festival was a good one for me. Yes, I did kiss Sophia under the mistletoe, but it was respectful, only because the children insisted. Having children in the house again came to the neighbors' attention through their kids. Suddenly, folks who had been avoiding me for years were smiling and waving. They also started stopping me in the street for a chat. I thought we were settling into our new living arrangements when New Year came. At midnight there was a bang on the door, and half a dozen neighbors came in with bottles of spirits. An impromptu party started up. Before my wife had left me, this had been a regular New Year's occurrence. Now it looked like they intended to make up for lost time. I won't go into details, as I don't remember much about that night until I realized the neighbors had gone home, and Sophia and I, both drunk, were making out on the sofa. Nothing heavy, but I had one hand on her breast and the other on her leg under her dress. I suddenly realized it wasn't the right thing to do. Sophia is an attractive woman, and very few men would want to kick her out of bed, but I didn't want her to sleep with me out of gratitude. I rapidly stopped the encounter. Sophia seemed surprised and went quiet before retreating to her room. We never discussed what had nearly happened and never got intimate again. Over the following months, we became close friends, but we avoided bodily contact. I became Uncle Alex to the children because little Olivia had trouble pronouncing Alex. The other two soon called me Uncle Alex, and then the neighbors' kids did too. Over the next few months, the neighbors also called me Alex. I spent a lot of time with the children. Having them in the house was like a second chance, though I did get melancholic, wondering if I had been as good a father as I could have been to my own kids. Over time, I learned that Sophia's husband had taken his own life. His business had gone broke, and he couldn't handle it, eventually committing suicide. I didn't learn this all at once, more from picking up bits and pieces here and there. Work began on Sophia's house quickly, but we were told it would take considerable time. The heat had damaged the structure, requiring an almost complete rebuild. Even the people in the other half had to move out while the wall was rebuilt. All 5 of us visited the house weekly to see the progress. Outsiders must have thought Sophia and I were husband and wife living together with our 4 children, but there was none of the intimacy that a husband and wife share. For the first few months, the only times Sophia and I left the house together were for shopping, visiting the cemetery her husband was in the same cemetery as my kids, and trips to see the house repairs. As time went on, I got dragged to the children's school events. The reaction of the teachers was interesting. Some had taught my kids and were aware of their deaths. One slipped up one day, referring to Miranda by my daughter's name. He was quite embarrassed when corrected. My relationship with the children grew closer, but with Sophia, it stayed the same. We kept each other at arm's length. Many evenings, I found myself watching her out of the corner of my eye. She was an attractive woman, and sometimes I felt she was watching me too. In the summer, I took them all on a camping holiday. It was something Sophia and the kids hadn't done before. They used the frame tent while I used my old hiking tent. Living without modern conveniences took getting used to, but they enjoyed it. We had more weekends away before the summer ended. Late summer found us, or rather Sophia, picking out paint colors, furniture, and flooring for her house. I drove her around, and she often asked my advice, though I wasn't an expert. By October, the house was nearing completion, and plans were made to move back in during the last week of the month. That was pushed back to early November due to problems with the heating. Suddenly, I was in an empty house again. I knew the day would come, but that first evening coming home to an empty house was a killer. I walked back out again. I knew my destination was Carl's Pub and wondered if anyone had taken my regular stool. I hadn't been there since the previous winter festival. Without thinking, I deterred past Sophia's house. Through the window, I saw the children eating, and Sophia was on the phone. I considered knocking on the door but couldn't bring myself to. My stool was empty, and Carl said, "Hi, Alex," pulling my pint as if I'd been there yesterday. "Alex," I replied. "Everybody calls me Alex nowadays." "Whatever makes no never mind to me," Carl replied, and continued serving me. I drank too much, realizing it the moment I woke up in my bed the next morning. My hangover made me decide I wasn't going back to my old ways. That was my intention, but the world is full of good intentions, isn't it? The next 2 evenings, I kicked around in the garage, planning to turn it into a workshop for woodworking or something. Then I'd have projects to do in the evenings and weekends. The next night, a neighbor invited me over for dinner. Out of desperation, I offered to help him with his wife's car. In gratitude, his wife asked me to stay for a meal. I didn't realize what was happening, but several neighbors asked me to join them for a meal over the next week or so. They would start chatting when I got home from work, and before I knew it, I'd be sitting down to eat with them. Often, the subject of Sophia and the children would come up, and I could only tell them I hadn't seen them since they moved out. This usually brought strange expressions to the wives' faces and embarrassed silences from the husbands. It was the 3rd weekend after Sophia had gone home that I ran into her and the children at the supermarket. Well, to be honest, the children ran into me, and everyone in the store knew about it. Before I knew what was happening, Olivia was sitting in my shopping cart, and the other 2 were hanging onto my arms. Luckily, the children were very vocal, as Sophia and I didn't seem to know what to say to each other. I took them to McDonald's for ice cream after we finished our shopping. While the children played, Sophia told me about the teething problems she was having with the house. Nothing serious, just the kind of things you would expect. Something made me invite them all back to my place for dinner that night. For a moment, I thought Sophia hesitated, but the children made the decision for her. Let's be fair, Sophia cooked the meal. Maybe she hesitated because she had sampled my cooking before. That afternoon, it was fun having the children over, even though they spent most of the time playing with the neighbors' kids. I helped, or hindered, Sophia in the kitchen, and we appeared to get on as we had while she was staying with me. That is, until she asked me to call the children in and get them washed up. Unfortunately, we both tried to cross the kitchen at the same time and collided near the back door. Sophia lost her balance, and I grabbed her to stop her from falling. Just for a moment, I was holding her in my arms, and then we were both saying sorry repeatedly to each other, disentangling ourselves and retreating into our shells, embarrassed. Dinner that evening was spent listening to the excited children tell us about their day with their friends. Once the washing up was done, I drove the family home. There was talk of them coming over again and of me going to have a meal with them, but no actual date was set. My car was left parked in Carl's pub parking lot that night. I was too drunk to drive it home. On Sunday, after I'd slept off the drink, I went back to retrieve it, and it spent another night parked there. I didn't want to go back to that empty house until I had to, or until I was so drunk I didn't notice the silence. Monday morning, I didn't go to work. I went to the real estate agent to put my house on the market. I had no idea where I was going to live, but I knew I couldn't live in that empty house anymore. Losing one family was bad enough, but losing a second was too much. I moved out of the house, leaving it furnished until it was sold. The agent said it was easier to sell a furnished house. I moved into a small residential hotel near where I worked. It was pleasant, but I can't say I made many friends among the other residents. I had been reverting to the miserable old fart I was 2 years ago. I received invitations through the mail to attend Sophia's children's winter festival plays and concerts at their school. I sat with Sophia through all of them, finding it a little uncomfortable as the seats were jammed in tightly. Actual physical contact between Sophia and me was almost impossible to avoid. I knew Sophia didn't like it because I could feel her stiffen when I touched her. Again, we discussed me going to their house for dinner one evening, but I managed to avoid making a firm date. The children asked if I was going to join them on Winter Festival Day, and I know they were upset when I told them I had other plans. I gave them a story about visiting my sister on the South Coast. I'm not sure Sophia bought the story, but I think the children did. I spent a lot of time choosing Winter Festival presents for Sophia and her children, arranging with a local courier company to have them delivered to her house on Winter Festival Day. Expensive, but worth it for the surprise value. The night before Winter Festival Eve, I found myself drawn to Carl's pub again. Strangely, it wasn't as crowded as it had been the year before. Different night of the week, I suppose? It must have been around 10ish when a voice asked, "Any happier this year, Alex?" I turned to see the old man sitting on the stool beside me. "Oh, it's you again. Where did you spring from?" I asked in surprise. I hadn't noticed him enter the bar or buy a drink from Carl, but I was probably in my own little world again. I'm always about somewhere, Alex. It's just that you don't see me. Jesus, you sound like you've drunk too much already. What are you having? I asked, signaling to Carl to refill my glass, but the old guy waved his hand to say he didn't want another at the moment. Carl came over with my new pint and then stood there for a while with a strange look on his face. "This one's on me, Alex, and I think you should make it your last for tonight," he said, waving away my offer to pay. I can't say I took much notice of what Carl said, as there were a few questions I had for the old man. "Where did you get to that night of the fire?" I asked. "When I came out of that house, you were nowhere to be seen." "I was busy, Alex. Before I retired, I was a pediatrician. I was in the ambulance helping the paramedics with the children. By the time I came out, you were gone. But my phone, how did you get that back to me?" "I gave it to a policeman. You didn't look too good when you came out of that house. I assume he must have given it to you or put it in your pocket." I had to admit that could have been how I got the phone back. I couldn't exactly recall what happened or what was said when the police officer came over and asked everyone to move further away from the fire. "You went to the hospital the next day?" I asked, still trying to get my head around this old man and his actions. "Of course I did. I wanted to see how the children were recovering. You know, that was very fortunate timing the night of the fire. Just a couple of minutes later, and there would have been a disaster." "But you gave Sophia my phone number. How did you know that? Or my name?" "From your mobile phone, Alex. You have your name and number on a label on the back." That was true. I was using a company phone, and as they were all the same, we had labels on them to say whose was whose. While I drank my pint, I kept asking the old man questions, and he came up with reasonable answers. But there was something about him that didn't add up in my mind. "So, Alex, are you spending Winter Festival with Sophia and the children?" he suddenly asked. "No, I didn't think that was a good idea," I replied. "And why not?" he demanded, sounding shocked. "Because I trailed off. Because what? Come on, out with it. Those children are going to miss seeing you. Because of Sophia. I looked around to see if anyone was within earshot. Carl was serving another customer at the far end of the bar, but no one else was close. I think I've fallen in love with her. And that's a good reason for not spending Winter Festival with her? I'd have thought that was a damn good reason to spend time with her and her family. But she doesn't feel the same way about me. What gives you that idea? I did something really stupid. Damn, I can't understand why I'm telling you this. Perhaps you need to. Now come on, out with it, the old man urged. Winter Gala night last year, she had only been in my house a couple of days, and I'm ashamed to say I kind of overstepped the mark. I think I upset her. Oh? And just how did you overstep the mark? Well, I kissed her and oh Christ, I touched her inappropriately. Can we leave this subject? No, I don't think we can. So what did she do to make you stop? Nothing. Look, I had drunk too much. Why don't I find that a surprise? The old man interjected. Well, anyway, I suddenly realized what I was doing and stopped myself. So Sophia didn't stop you, stopped yourself? Yes. If she didn't stop you, why did you stop? Perhaps she wanted you to continue. She might have let me out of gratitude for saving her and her family's life. I don't want a woman to sleep with me out of gratitude. Did you discuss this with Sophia? Don't be silly. It would have been too embarrassing. She was embarrassed enough being in the house with me after that. Oh, so embarrassed that she didn't move herself and her children out of your house. Well, she didn't have anywhere to go. Rubbish. The insurance company paid you for accommodating her and the children, didn't they? Sophia could have moved out any time she liked. Then why did she stay? Think. Could it be that she had fallen in love with her guardian angel? The old man said quietly. It's such a shame that that has never happened to me. She never said anything to me. And I suppose you told her how you felt every day? Of course I didn't. If I told Sophia how I felt, and she didn't feel the same way, it would have been too embarrassing for her to stay living at my house. You don't think there's the slight possibility that Sophia was thinking the exact same thing, do you, Alex? But tell me, why haven't you accepted her invitations to dinner? How do you know I haven't? How do you know she's asked me? Let's just say it's obvious to me. But you're making a mistake. That woman has fallen in love with you. Suddenly, the pub doors flew open, and a massive party crowd entered. Conversation became impossible, and for a few minutes, I turned my attention away from the old man. When things quieted down, I was surprised to find he was no longer sitting beside me. Carl, where'd the old man go? I asked as he came over to refill my glass. What old man? The old guy I was talking to. Christ, Carl, you've had enough for one night. You've been sitting there talking to yourself all night. Time you went home, I think, Carl said, pulling the pint away and pouring it into the slops tray. Do you want me to call you a taxi, Alex? He added. Carl, I think you'd better cut down on the sauce yourself, I said as I got off my stool. Once Carl decided I'd had enough, I knew I'd get no more from him that night. Winter Festival Eve, I woke up without a hangover. It was pleasant but not as surprising as it would have been if Sophia hadn't lived with me for 2 years. Hangovers were the norm for me. I had the day off work and spent it wandering around the shops. I had already bought the children and Sophia's presents, and arranged for them to be delivered by couriers in the morning, but I found a couple of other things I thought they would like. I wrapped them up and took them to the courier office to be added to the delivery, then went back to the hotel with a couple of bottles of booze to keep me senseless until after Boxing Day. Back in those days, the pubs didn't open for long on Winter Festival Day. As I came out of the dining room in the hotel that night, one of the other residents, a guy everyone in the hotel knew as the Major, collared me. Mr. Wilson, I say, old boy, do you play bridge? He asked. Well, I have, but I'm not that good at it, I replied, taken by surprise by his question. Wonderful. You're just what we need. We don't take it too seriously ourselves, but Mrs. Grant has visitors this evening. Would you mind making up a fourth until her visitors go? I didn't know how to say no to the old bugger. Damn it, what is it about officer types that they can get you to do things without really trying? So the next thing I know, I'm sitting down with 4 old farts playing bridge instead of going to Carl's pub. Still, it's only until Mrs. Grant's guests leave, I thought. Some hopes. The old girl never showed at all, and we were still playing at midnight. The Major and the other two thanked me for sitting in as the game broke up and made their way off to bed. By then, they knew how bad I was at bridge, but they didn't comment. Lucky we weren't playing for money, or I'd have been broke. After they'd gone, I sat in the lounge for a while, watching TV. It wasn't until I got into bed that I realized all I'd had to drink was a couple of sherries with the Major and his cronies. I'd fancied a pint or two but didn't think it right to drink beer at the bridge table. I was up early for breakfast on Winter Festival morning. God knows why, possibly because I'd had nothing to drink the night before. As I came down the stairs from my room, there was a surprise waiting for me in reception. "Mr. Wilson, there are some parcels here for you," the receptionist said as I came into view. I did a double take as she pointed to the little pile of brightly colored packages. Christ, they were my presents for Sophia and the children. What the hell were they doing at the hotel? Assuming the couriers had screwed up, I called them to demand they deliver the parcels to the correct address. All I got was a recorded Winter Festival greeting and a message that the office would be open again after Boxing Day. "You know, the old man who delivered them seemed a bit strange to me," the young receptionist commented, kindly ignoring my blasphemies as I put the phone down. "Don't tell me, a short, plump guy with white hair and a beard?" I asked. "Why, yes, that sounds like him. Do you know him?" she asked, smiling. "Regretfully, I think I do. Can you call me a taxi and ask them to deliver these for me?" "Certainly, Mr. Wilson. Go and have your breakfast, and he'll call you when the taxi gets here so you can pay them." The girl still hadn't called me when I came out of the dining room after my leisurely breakfast. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson. It doesn't make sense, but I've tried every taxi company we normally use, and none of them have a car available. It might not make sense to you, but where that old man is concerned, it definitely is starting to make sense to me, young lady. Would you mind helping me carry these out to my car?" As I pulled into Sophia's driveway, the front door opened, and all 4 children rushed out to greet me. I won't go into the rest of the day, but I will say that although I had said I wasn't coming, my attendance seemed to have been anticipated. I noted the dining room table had already been laid to seat 5. After the children had gone to bed, I asked Sophia, "You knew I was coming then?" "Of course. But I told you I wasn't coming." "Yes, you did, but I saw your friend yesterday, and he told me you would definitely be here today." "Don't tell me, the little tubby bloke?" "Yes, the man who came to the hospital last year." "Did he by any chance say anything else?" "Only that I should lock the door after you came in and get my hands on your car keys." I looked at the coffee table where I'd put my keys. They were gone. "Looking for these?" Sophia asked, holding my car keys up. "Yes, can I have them, please?" "Of course. Just come and get them," Sophia replied, at the same time pulling the dress she was wearing away from her chest and dropping the keys down her cleavage. Then she sat there and smiled at me. "What am I supposed to do now?" I asked. "Come and get them," Sophia said, as she jumped up and ran for the lounge door. "You know where the bedroom is, don't you?" Sophia and I were married less than 6 weeks later. Well, you knew that was coming, even if I didn't. But there are none so blind as those who want see. We've been living in this house together happily now for the last 15 years. I'm sitting here this Winter Festival Eve with my loving wife beside me, looking at an old scorched photograph hanging over the fireplace. It was just after our wedding when some photograph albums that had been recovered from Sophia's burned-out house were finally returned to her. They had been damaged by water and the fire itself. The insurance company had sent them off to specialists to see if any could be saved. "Sophia, who's this a picture of?" I asked as we looked through them for the first time. "My grandfather, my father's dad." "I love that picture. Doesn't he remind you of Santa Claus?" "I thought he looked like the old guy, you know, the one I called my friend." "No, I don't think so. He's much shorter than my grandfather was. Strange though, when I was younger, I remember he had a sterner look on his face, but he's positively beaming there. I suppose memory plays tricks on us. Thanks for joining us for this story of unexpected second chances. Do you think the old man was just a stranger, or was he something more? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.